It started in high school. If this had happened a few years later, it probably wouldn't have mattered much. But when you're a teenager, you don't look into the future and can't foresee the possible consequences of your actions. Sue Ellen and I got along with each other for a little over a year, and even started talking about marriage when we graduated from college. Looking back, I realized it was probably stupid of us. I mean, we still had to graduate from high school, and only God knew what would happen or could happen before we even graduated from college, and we didn't even finish high school. 2 weeks before prom, Sue Ellen broke up with me. She said that she needed to go somewhere with her parents. These things did happen, and I accepted it and found something to do. Later that evening, I went to Harry's malt shack. I was sitting there when Bill Newbert came in, saw me, and came over to join me. He ordered a hamburger, fries, and a strawberry milkshake, and then said, "I didn't know you and Sue Ellen had broken up. What happened? Why do you think we broke up?" "I just saw her and Harry Short hugging in the parking lot." "When was it?" "About 10 minutes ago." I must have surprised him when I jumped up and hurried away. It took me less than 4 minutes to get to Rialto, and sure enough, Sue Ellen and Harry were parked in the back of the lot and making out. They were in the clinch and didn't even notice me when I approached. I watched for about a minute and then knocked on the window. They pulled away and both pairs of eyes widened when they saw me. I looked at Sue Ellen and said, "Goodbye." I don't know if she heard me through the glass window, but I emphasized it by waving goodbye to her. I left the car and went home. The next day was Saturday, and I went to work part-time at Boyson's supermarket. When I got home, my mom told me that Sue Ellen had called several times trying to reach me. "You should probably call her." "Don't think. We broke up last night, and I really don't think we have anything to say to each other." I went to my room and worked on a paper that was due on Wednesday. I was typing this when the phone rang and my mom called. "This is for you, Rob." I went into the kitchen, took my mom's phone, and said, "Hello?" "Can I come to your place?" asked Sue Ellen. "Not necessary. There is nothing to talk about. I said everything I needed to say when I waved goodbye to you last night. You lied to me when you interrupted our date, and from what I understand, you cheated on me with Harry. Nothing you can say will change anything. Goodbye," and I hung up. Sunday was another work day for me, but I only worked 4 hours. If you were under 18, you could only work part-time and were limited to 20 hours a week, and as scheduled, I worked 8 on Saturday and 4 on Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday. I was actually 18, but I never told them when my birthday was because then they would have scheduled more hours for me, and I didn't want that. This would pretty much mean that my life would be nothing but school and work, and I wasn't even close to ready for that. Working part-time gave me enough money to put gas in my car and some spending money. Sue Ellen was waiting for me at the front door when I arrived at school on Monday. I walked past her, but she stood in front of me and said, "We need to talk, Robbie." I couldn't make a scene in front of everyone, so I said, "At lunch," and gently pushed her out of the way. She was already sitting at the table and waiting for me when I came to the school cafeteria during lunch. I sat down on the chair opposite her, and before she could say a word, I said, "You interrupted our date because you said you needed to go somewhere with Mom and Dad. Unless they were in the trunk of Harry's car, that means you lied to me. What you did with Harry when I knocked on the window was a deception that's already clear to me. So what should we talk about?" "It didn't mean anything, Robbie." "Of course it meant something." "No, that's not true. I was just trying to satisfy my curiosity." "Your curiosity? You know you're the only guy I've ever kissed. I just wonder what a different guy would be like." "As far as I know, I'm the only guy you've ever made love to. Is this the next curiosity you're going to satisfy?" "Of course not. How can you even think that about me?" "Considering that I caught you doing what I saw, it's pretty easy for me to think of something like that. You broke up with me and lied to Sue Ellen about it. You should have been honest with me. If you had done that, I would have been able to get a date with another girl, but the way you did it ended our relationship." "It doesn't have to be this way, Robbie." "Maybe Sue Ellen. Goodbye, Sue Ellen." I got up from the table and walked away from her. I suppose there are people who might say I was a bit of a jerk for taking that position, considering I was just a guy. But then they might not have grown up in a home with a single mother because of a father who cheated on her and then left town when he learned that he was ordered to pay large alimony payments at home. It may not have been consistent with our legal system, but in my opinion, fraud was a criminal offense. What I have just described marked the beginning of an event that was to have far-reaching consequences. The breakup with Sue Ellen left me without a date to prom. The only girls I knew well enough to ask were already being discussed, so I had to either go to the bachelor party or skip it. The more I thought about it, the more I was sure I wouldn't like the dear feeling, so I decided not to go. It was Tuesday. I had just gotten home from work and was sitting at the kitchen table studying when the doorbell rang and my mom called and said someone wanted to see me. I walked out into the living room and found Paul and French sitting there talking to my mother. Mom stood up and said that she would leave the room to give us some privacy. I've known Paulin since third grade, and at one time, before I met Sue Ellen, I had a little crush on Polly. "What brings you here tonight?" I asked. "I heard that you and Sue Ellen broke up. This is true." "I'm afraid so." "What are you going to do about prom?" "Will not go." "Why do you ask?" "Because I want to go, but I don't want to go alone." "Why? Did something happen to Bert?" "You could say so. I caught him kissing Bev Ebeg at Nancy Wilder's birthday party and broke up with him. Can I interest you in being with me at my prom?" It wasn't difficult for me. I wanted to go, but not because I didn't have a date, so of course I said, "I'd like to invite you to prom." We discussed the details, and then I walked her to the door. She surprised me when she hugged me and kissed me. "You won't regret it, Rob. I promise you, you won't regret it." It was open to interpretation. The part is that I have no regrets. In high school, rumors traveled fast, and when I walked up to the car the next day after school, I found Bert Ellsworth leaning on my left front fender. "What nonsense am I hearing about you taking Pauline to the prom?" "Yes, I'm driving." "No, you don't, bastard. Pauline is my girlfriend, and you're not going anywhere with her." "She says differently. She said she broke up with you." "I don't care what she said. She's mine until I say she's not mine." "No problem. Let her call me and tell me this, but until then she is my date to the ball." "There was a fight between us." "It's not over yet, bastard." He turned and walked away. I got into the car and drove to work. At the prom, I had a great time with Polina. I had to share it with the dancing, but I also danced with some other girls. The only sore point was that Sue Ellen was there with Bobby Holbrook and gave me and Paulin dirty looks all night, but we ignored her. We attended 2 after-prom parties. There was alcohol present at both parties, and although I had 1 beer at each, that was my limit. I had no intention of crashing, but Paulin was in a party mood and walked over to the punch bowl several times, which contained alcoholic punch. When we left the second party and I pulled away from the side of the road, Polina said, "I don't want to do this in the back seat." "What?" I said, "I don't want to do this in your back seat. Do you have a place we can go?" Suddenly, it dawned on me. She wanted to make love, but not in the car. I had a place we could go. My mother spent the weekends with my Aunt Ruth. Aunt Ruth fell and broke her wrist, and Mom was going to help her. She was 18 like me, so I took her home. As we undressed in my bedroom, Polina said, "I told you that you wouldn't regret taking me to prom," and she was right. I wasn't sorry at all. I needed to get her home by 6 a.m. on Saturday, but I had arranged to have the weekend off from work, so I picked her up at noon, and we spent the next 10 hours in my bedroom. I took her home at 11 and then picked her up again at 10 on Sunday and spent the next 6 hours in my room. Well, yes, it wasn't just sex. We stopped to eat and take a shower or two, but overall it was a normal weekend. At 6, when Mom got home from Aunt Ruth's, we were dressed and eating chicken noodle soup and grilled cheese sandwiches in the kitchen. After that weekend, Polly and I became a couple. We lasted until halfway through our sophomore year of college, and then Polly told me she wanted to date other guys. She wanted to continue seeing me, but didn't want us to be exclusive. I told her I was really sorry, but it wouldn't work for me. I wished her luck, and we parted. Until the end of my second year, I dated a few and focused on my studies. Junior year is when my life started getting interesting again. The course was manufacturing management, and halfway through the class, the teacher divided the class into groups of 4 and assigned each group a project. We were told that the project would be worth half the grade we received for the course. My group consisted of 3 guys and 1 girl. The girl was Katie Winters, and she was a knockout. She was the girl you would never take home to meet your mom and dad. I've seen her on campus since freshman year, and she was always on the arm of some athlete. I even took a few classes with her, so I knew her enough to nod hello whenever we passed each other in the hallways or while walking around campus. In my opinion, the other 2 guys were dumb. Athletes consider training to be a prerequisite for receiving an athletic scholarship. I knew from past experience that they were only interested in getting a grade that would allow them to stay on the team. All they were really interested in was using college sports as a stepping stone to the pros. We had our first meeting together at the library, and when it was over and we were on our way, Katie asked if she could buy me a cup of coffee. As soon as we sat down in the dining room, Katie asked me what I hoped to get out of the class. Is it just a box you have to check to get 3 more credit hours towards your degree? The course you're on, will you agree for a passing grade? Not at all. When I start sending out resumes, I want them to contain the highest GPA I can get. As for the course itself, I expect that what I learn will be useful in real-life situations. Then you understand that in order to get a good grade, you and I will have to do everything right. Chad and Spence don't pay attention to their lessons. All they want is the minimum to get at least a C, to maintain their athletic fitness. If we get a good grade and I want an A, that means we have to do their part as well as ours. I sat there, listened to her, and agreed with her on everything. What I had a hard time grasping was her seemingly low opinion of athletes when I only saw her with them. When she fell silent, I told her that I completely agreed with her, and then we divided the tasks between Chad and Spence. This meant that we would spend more time together until classes ended. Classes were held on Tuesday and Friday, and after each class, the group met in the library and discussed the project. As expected, Chad and Spence did no more than we expected. Since Tuesday was a work day for me, I sat in the meeting just long enough to discuss what I had done and then hurried off to work. Katie and I usually met once a week to discuss business and work on a project. The meetings were of a business nature, and nothing was discussed other than the project. We submitted the project on time and received an A for it. The day we got our score sheet back, Katie asked me to meet her for coffee. We sat down, and as I took my first sip, Katie said, "I want to thank you for helping me get a good grade." "No thanks. It was in my best interest to do this." She looked at me for a few seconds and then hit me. "Why have you never been offended by me? Why haven't you ever asked me out on a date?" This took me by surprise, and I didn't know what to say. When I didn't answer right away, she said, "This can't be because you have a girlfriend, because you don't have one. At least not the one that has ever been seen with you." Finally, I pulled myself together enough to say, "No one has seen me with a girl because I don't have one, but I have seen you with other guys." "So what? There is no ring on my finger. I am not married, not engaged, and have no plans to be in a relationship." "Maybe not, but all the guys I've seen you with are athletes." Realizing that they were the type you prefer, and I'm not that type of guy, I just didn't waste my time. I date these types because they are the only ones who ask me out. I'm not stupid, Rob. I know what I look like. Guys would like to know better, but they never got the chance because they looked at me and told themselves that someone like them would never have a chance with me. Athletes are a different type of people. Success in sports gives them self-confidence, and they strive for what they want. Tell me this, have you ever seen me with one of these for a long time? I can't say I noticed, Katie. I just saw that you were always with someone, and I'm not one of those who interfere in other people's relationships. Well, I'm not dating anyone at the moment. It was a clear enough invitation, and I immediately asked her out. A month after we started dating, we made love for the first time. From then on, we made love as often as we could. It helped that Katie came from a fairly wealthy family and had an apartment close to campus. Our relationship had gotten to the point, at least in my opinion, that I began to think about making it permanent. Nothing was said, but I had a feeling that Katie felt the same way. The good times ended during summer break when Katie went home to Ohio for the summer. She invited me to go with her so I could meet her family, but that was impossible. I did not come from a wealthy family and had to work. I studied on a scholarship and had to earn money for additional expenses. For example, gas for the car, paying for dates with Katie, and so on. I was still working at Boyson, but I had moved from the store to the warehouse at the main distribution center. I took as many shifts as I could and saved money to buy Katie a ring. I was planning to propose as soon as she returned at the end of August. A week before she returned, and after I was convinced that the ring could be returned if she said no, I bought the ring. Katie called me to let me know when her flight was arriving so I could meet her. I planned to get down on one knee and propose as soon as I saw her, but I chickened out. I had a picture in my head of me on my knees in the airport, surrounded by people, and Katie saying no. I did the right thing by not proposing at the airport, because when I did propose, she said no. I met her at the airport where she kissed me, and then I took her to her apartment. Already in the car, she said that she was hormonally hungry and planned a long night. Luckily for me, the next day was Sunday, and I didn't have to work because Katie didn't even give me the energy to get out of bed in the morning. We got up around 11 and went to breakfast. When we returned to her apartment, I decided to propose. I got down on one knee, showed the ring, and asked if she would marry me. I know I had a big smile on my face when I did this, but it quickly disappeared when Katie said, "That's so sweet of you, Rob, and I'm touched that you think that way of me, but I'm afraid I have to say no." Talk about a bucket of cold water poured over your head. Slowly rising to my feet, I muttered, "At least the ring can be returned." I turned and headed towards the door. "Where are you going?" "Home." "No, come back here, Robert." I turned to her and said, "For what?" "There is nothing more for me here. I thought we had something. Thought we were more than just a college couple who broke up after graduation. Sorry, but I need more." And I turned and left her apartment. I felt bad, and it was noticeable. I had been home for no more than 5 minutes when my mother asked what happened. I proposed to Katie, and she refused. Did she say why? I didn't wait to find out. Besides, it doesn't matter. I am one of the few who understands that no means no. She could have had good reasons. Good for her, maybe, but not for me. Sorry, I need to go up to my room and promise. I lay down on the bed, stared at the ceiling, and replayed in my head everything that happened between me and Katie. I tried to find something that would show that Katie didn't feel the same way about me as I felt about her, but I couldn't find anything. Perhaps it's true. Love is blind. Classes started the next day, and luckily, at least for the first semester, I didn't have any classes with Katie. All my classes were in the morning, and I chose them so I could work a full evening shift in a warehouse. This meant I wouldn't have lunch in the student union, and if I stuck to my schedule and got off campus straight after class, I could avoid Katie. I'm sure almost everyone has heard the saying, "Man plans, but the gods laugh." When my last class ended, I hurried to the parking lot and saw Katie sitting in my car. I forgot that I gave her a set of keys so she could use the car while I was at work. I sat down and said, "What are you doing here?" "You ran away before I could explain myself, and I didn't want to talk about it on the phone." "You probably wouldn't have picked up the phone. This seemed like the best way to reach you." I wanted to say, "Why bother?" but I remained silent. "Just listen to me, okay?" I just sat and silently looked at her. "I don't want to get married now, honey." "I'm not saying no to you. I say no to marriage. I didn't work hard to get my degree only to throw it in the trash and become a wife and mother. I fully intend to use my degree, Rob, but I don't know where right now." When I start sending out resumes, I have no idea what they might offer me. This could be the East Coast, West Coast, or South. I can't just pack up and leave if I'm married. Think about it, Rob. We'll get married, I'll be offered my dream job, but it'll be in New York, Boston, or maybe Los Angeles, and you'll say you're not going to move there. You already know what you will do. You will stay here and go full-time to Boyson. Maybe I'll find a job in this area, maybe I won't. Then there's the fact that I know you too well, honey. I know that you will want a family and will start pressuring me to give you children, and I will have to tell you no. Once again, dear, it was not in vain that I worked for my diploma so as not to use it. I sat and listened, and by the time she finished, I knew what she meant and could accept it, but it didn't change anything. Whether our relationship ended last night or will end after graduation, the fact remains that our relationship is over. Say something, honey. What can I say? You've covered everything. We do not have a future. I started the car, put it in gear, and as soon as we started driving, Katie asked, "What are you doing? Since you're already in the car, I'll take you home." We drove in silence for a couple of minutes, and then she said, "Sorry, Rob, I'm really sorry." I didn't answer and just waited for her to get out of the car. When she left, I drove away without looking back. For the next month, my life consisted only of study and work. I saw Katie on campus sometimes, but I never spoke to her. A couple of times she saw me and started to approach, but then changed her mind and went in the other direction. I've missed out on several dating opportunities because, frankly, I'm tired of investing time in girls who will either leave me or let me down. Then one day I saw something that must have turned on a switch in my head, and I started looking at girls again. What was it? I saw Katie walking with a guy, and they were talking and laughing together. It was like a voice in my head said, "She can move on, why can't you?" Before the end of the semester, I went on a few dates and had sex a couple of times. At the beginning of the last semester, my management decision analysis course was divided into groups for the next project. The group included me, another guy, and 3 girls. I met 2 of them last semester, but although I saw the third on campus, I didn't know her. Her name was Nancy, but she preferred to be called Nan. The group met twice a week after class in the library, and after the third meeting, Nan and I started going to the village in cafe for coffee. For some reason, Hank, the other guy, never joined us, or maybe didn't want to. One evening, Cindy and Cora didn't show up, so Nan and I were left alone at the village inn. We were talking about some stupid so-called reality show when suddenly Nan said, "Both Cora and Cindy say you're a great guy. When will I get my chance?" I was drinking coffee when she said this and almost choked. I put the cup down and said, "Sorry. It's simple. I want to go on a date with you, and I don't want to wait for you to ask, so I'm telling you directly." She was a cute girl, and I hadn't been on a date in a while, so I said, "When and where?" I had a good time on our first 2 dates, but things got interesting on the third. On the first 2 dates, I got a kiss on the cheek goodbye, but on the third, Nan said, "Every girl I've talked to says you're a pretty nice guy. Cora says you're good in bed. Cindy says, I'll never tell, but smiles when she does. Samantha Stark, the first girl you dated after breaking up with Katie, said it was a shame she couldn't keep you, but you were too afraid of relationships back then. What I want to say is that I am a healthy woman and I have certain needs. I'm looking for a friends with benefits relationship for the rest of the semester. I do not want to get married. I just need to have sex regularly, without obligations. Your choice. If you agree, let's do it. If not, this is our last date." She loved everything. Nan was the perfect woman for me at that stage of my life. I loved her very much, but I didn't love her. We had a lot of fun together, and she always got the best out of me when we dated. It's almost a shame that graduation day has arrived. We spent our last night together the day we graduated, and then she left for Atlanta, and I never heard from her again. At Boyson, they were preparing me to take the place of my boss when he retires. He was expected to leave a year after I graduated, and I would have a year to work with him before taking his place. But everything went wrong. I came to work one Wednesday morning to find him dead on the floor of his office. He had a massive heart attack. Suddenly, I found myself up to my neck in a job for which I was only half prepared. I worked 10 to 12 hours a day, 6, and sometimes 7 days a week. All I could do was eat, sleep, and work. It took a little over 6 months for me to reduce my work hours to 50 hours a week. I started going out and meeting people and met a few women with whom I got along well. One of these women was Nadia Spellman. We dated for a month before we began a passionate affair. She wanted to make love all the time, and how could I say no? I was thinking about proposing to her when this decision was made for me. "We need to talk, Rob." "Why, Nadia? What's happened?" "I am pregnant." A week later, I carried my wife across the threshold of my apartment. The next 6 months were pure bliss. I had the life I wanted. Good job, beautiful wife, sex life, and a baby on the way. All that was missing was a house with a yard and a dog and cat, but we were working on that and were already looking at a couple of houses for sale. In the 7th month, Nadia fell down the stairs at work, and this terminated the pregnancy. It was difficult for her for a while, but then she seemed to come to her senses. The doctors said there was no reason why we couldn't try again, but Nadia made it clear that she wouldn't be ready for that anytime soon. When the doctor cleared her to have sex again, she returned to her normal self. Another 6 months passed, and one afternoon I decided to surprise Nadia at work and invite her to lunch. It was a surprise for both of us. When I walked into her office unannounced, she was surprised to see me. I was surprised to see her when she cheated on me with her colleague. "Sorry, I should have knocked," I said and left. The divorce went smoothly. I didn't want her anymore after what I saw, and she obviously didn't want me either. It turned out that they had been sleeping for several months, and she was about to leave me. I never asked the questions that most men ask, like, why? And what did I do wrong? Because I didn't care. The salaries were comparable, so there was no alimony. There were no assets other than savings, which were divided, and we each kept our cars. After the divorce, I quickly decided that I probably wasn't the one who got her pregnant back then. One day, my boss called me into his office and asked if I would like to accept a promotion and transfer to Dayton. There was nothing holding me back, and I said yes. The first month was spent getting used to the new job and area. When I started exploring the nightlife, interesting things started to happen. It was a Saturday night, and I was told that the Starlight Lounge was a hot spot, so I decided to check it out. I had been there for about an hour, dancing with a few unaccompanied ladies, and was about to hit on a redhead when 4 girls walked in and took a table at the back of the room. I couldn't believe my eyes. One of them was Katie. What were the chances of this happening? The moment I recognized her, she looked at me, and I saw recognition appear on her face. She turned around, said something to the other 3, and now 4 pairs of eyes were looking at me. It would have been polite to stand up and come over and say hello, but the truth was that seeing Katie immediately brought back the pain she had caused me. I decided my evening was ruined and got up to leave. I had almost reached the door when a hand grabbed my arm and a woman's voice said, "Hey, where are you going?" I turned around and saw one of the girls who had come with Katie. "We need to get out of here," I said. "She told us that you'll probably run away as soon as you see her, but we want you to stay." "Why should I do this?" "Because Katie has talked about you so much over the last couple of years that we all feel like we know you and want to get to know you better." Katie was talking about me? I doubt it. This is true. We all heard her complain about letting go of the best thing that ever happened to her. Did she say that? This is nothing like the Katie I knew. Believe me. So how about you stay? It could be fun. I had to admit my curiosity, so I said, "Lead the way, honey." "Darling," she said, leading me to their table. "She didn't tell us you had a silver tongue." They brought a chair from another table and found a seat for me. They had to be confident in the girl they sent for me. Her name was Jamie, by the way. She introduced me to the others at the table. Meg, Jen, and, of course, Katie were there. I shook hands with the first 2, but only nodded to Katie. They placed me between Jamie and Meg and right across from Katie. Katie smiled at me and said, "You look good, Rob. Healthy lifestyle." Jamie then said, "We come here often, but I don't remember seeing you before." "This is my first time. I just moved here 2 months ago." Then they wanted to know why I moved, and I explained. As I spoke, I noticed Jamie looking at the dance floor and drumming her fingers on the table to the beat of the music, so I took her hand and asked, "Do we want to try the dance floor?" She smiled at me and repeated my phrase, "Lead the way, darling." We stayed on the dance floor for 2 numbers, and in between them, Jamie said, "I know all the girls at the table very well, and I know that Meg will try to get you. Katie will want it too, but I think she'll be waiting to see what you do." "Why is that?" "She'll want to see some sign that you're still interested. She won't risk being rejected." "Why doesn't Jen do this? She has a fiancé, but you never know. She may just want to replace it." The band started the next number, and it was a slow waltz, so Jamie was able to continue. The reason I mentioned this is because, knowing what everyone else will probably do, I want to be first. If you're half the person Kathy described you as, I want to get to know you better. I have no idea what she said, but believe me, I'm unremarkable and I know it. Should you let me find out for myself? She was right, so I said. All I need is a phone number and the best time to call. I'll make sure you get it before we leave. The number ended, and the lead singer announced that it was time to take a 15-minute break. When we got back to the table, the girls started asking me about my job, where I live, how I like the area, and so on. Katie just sat and listened, but didn't try to participate in the conversation. The group returned, and Meg said, "It's my turn," and she stood up, taking my hand. I got up, and we went to the dance floor. It didn't take long to realize that if Jamie was right and Meg was going to try to get me, then Meg was wasting her time. It was obvious that she smoked a lot. Her hair, clothes, and breath smelled of cigarette smoke, and this was a big turn-off for me. She actually tried, asking if I had dated anyone since moving to Dayton. It was an open invitation, and I knew it, but she didn't get the response she needed. I said that I didn't have time for that, and that most of my time would be spent learning the new job, and I didn't expect to have any free time for at least a couple of months. We returned to the table, and I had another drink before asking Jen to dance. She agreed, and when we were on the dance floor, she asked, "Are you going to ask Katie to dance?" "Why are you asking me this? Aren't you going to try it yourself?" "I might have tried if I didn't have Jeff, but how about inviting Katie?" "Don't know. She was pretty specific when she rejected me." That was then. She realized it was a big mistake and now regrets it. I know this for sure because I listened to her complain for years about letting go of the best thing that ever happened to her. I don't know if I can. Years passed and I finally got over it. I don't think I want to go back. I'm not suggesting you renew your relationship, although I'm sure that's what she wants. It wouldn't hurt to extend an olive branch to her. If you don't, perhaps you better not come here anymore, since she's here 2 to 3 times a week. Has she become an alcoholic? Not at all. We work nearby and many of us come here to relax. This gives us a chance to let off steam and criticize management. When I brought Jen back to the table, I wondered if I really wanted to open old wounds. The voices in my head were debating whether to do this, with one voice saying, "You've already lived through this, it won't hurt you to be polite," and another voice saying, "Don't do that, you'll be pulled in again." I haven't decided what to do with Katie yet, but it turns out it doesn't matter. As soon as Jen sat down, Katie stood up and said, "The next dance is mine." I couldn't say, "No, thank you," without seeming like a jerk in front of the other girls, and I didn't want that to happen. Not if I wanted Jamie to go on a date. When we were on the dance floor, Katie said, "I didn't wait for you to invite me because you weren't going to, were you?" There was a debate in my head about whether I should. I haven't decided yet when you will get up. Any chance you could have dinner with me sometime soon? I'd like to talk to you. I don't know, Katie. It took me a while to get over you. I don't know if I want to go back to this. I'm not asking for a date. Just two old friends having dinner together and talking. I'll think about it, but don't get your hopes up. I don't see how anything good can come out of this, but I can see the possibility of pain and suffering for me. The song ended and we returned to the table. I danced 2 more times with each of the girls, including Katie, and later that evening when I came out of the restroom, I saw Katie waiting for me. I have a feeling you weren't going to ask, so I decided that if it had to happen, it should be on me. She gave me a piece of paper and I looked at it, seeing the phone number. I was half a step away from just throwing it on the floor and walking away from her, but then I thought there was no need to be a jerk, so I put the paper in my pocket and said, "Let's see. No promises, we'll see." I had one more drink and danced with Jamie one last time and then called it quits. As I stood up to leave, Jamie gave me a piece of paper and said, "Call me." I wasn't looking in Katie's direction, so I don't know how she reacted, but I saw Jen and Meg. Jen smiled and Meg looked unhappy, so I added, "When will be the best time?" "Tomorrow around noon. I usually sleep after nights like this." "Then see you tomorrow," I said and left. As I pulled out of the parking lot, I wondered how Katie took this exchange between Jamie and me. I hope it was like a kick in the teeth for her. Maybe she now knows how I felt when she rejected me as a student. The next day at 12:15, I called Jamie and asked her to dinner, and she said yes and gave directions to her house. When I picked her up, I told her that since I was new in town, she would have to choose a place for dinner. She gave me directions, and we headed to the Alphonse restaurant. On the way, I asked her how everything went after I left. She laughed and said, "It was like at a party when someone added shit to the punch." Meg was angry. She actually thought we should play rock, paper, scissors to decide who would go on a date with you first. Katie was angry in a "how could you do this to me" way. Jen didn't say anything. She just laughed at us. To be honest, of all 4 women at the table, only 2 had a real chance. Who? You and Jen, but you already told me about her fiancé, so it's only you left. Meg and Katie didn't have a chance. I explained why Meg was out, and then explained why Katie didn't have a chance. She's already hurt me once, and you know the old saying, "Once burned, twice afraid." I'm not going to let this happen again. She chose her career over me, and I don't want to go through that again. Speaking of career and given her statements and desire for success, I would have thought that she was already in management and not going into a bar to drink and complain about the boss. She's in leadership, and no one doubts that she will become vice president next year. The management we are complaining about is senior management, the idiots who run the company. I changed the subject. All in all, it was a pleasant evening, and when it was over, I invited her back, and she happily accepted. I picked her up on Tuesday, and we went to dinner and a movie. After the movie, we stopped at a bar near her house and had a couple of cocktails. We talked, got to know each other better, and around 10 we decided to call it a night, since the next day was a working day for both of us. While I was driving her home, she asked, "Are you sure that Katie has no chance of being with you again?" "Considering how much she hurt me the first time, I don't see how this could happen." "Why do you ask?" "Ever since we met on Saturday, things have been kind of chilly between us, and I don't want to be in a position where she thinks I'm the only thing stopping you from getting back together. I can handle her attitude if I make sure I don't interfere with it. She asked me to go out to dinner with her one day to talk, and I think I should do that and let her know that what we once had is dead and gone." By that time, we were already at her house, and I received a kiss on the cheek as I walked her to the door and heard, "I liked it, Bob. Call me so we can do this again." The next day at work, I thought about what was happening. I liked Jamie, and it could have gone somewhere, but I was honest with myself. If they put Jamie and Katie in front of me and told me to choose, and if Katie didn't hurt me, I would choose her. The problem is that she has already hurt me. The simple solution, as I saw it, was to never return to Starlight, where I might run into Jamie and Katie. Although this was a simple solution, it was not entirely realistic. After I explained to the group on Saturday night how I ended up in Dayton, they knew where I worked and therefore knew where to find me. If I understand Jamie correctly, She is the type who will hunt me down and demand an explanation. Based on everything Jamie and Jen had said about Katie, and based on Katie's actions on Saturday night, I was sure she would come to me too. The only realistic way to deal with this is to meet with Katie and, as she puts it, clear the air. Before I got off work, I called her and made an appointment to meet her for dinner on Thursday. She gave me directions to her house, and I said I'd be there at 6. I picked her up and asked where she would like to go, and she said the Village Inn would be okay. She was silent for the first 5 minutes of the ride and then said, "Jamie says you were dating her." A couple of times. Will this be serious? Don't know. It's too early to tell. Why are you asking? Just curious. I wonder if I have a chance. Chance? You already had me, Katie, completely. You had me, but you didn't want me. Do you remember? I remember, Rob. I remember too well. It was a mistake that I regret and that I never thought I could correct. And suddenly, here you are. It was almost like fate decided I needed to be given a second chance. I didn't say anything to her, and we drove in silence all the way to the restaurant. When we sat down and ordered, Katie said, "I was wrong, Rob. I made the wrong choice and have regretted it ever since. If I could go back and change everything, I would do it without a second thought." I didn't say anything. I just sat and listened. I guess what I'm asking is, do I have a chance, an opportunity to start over? As I sat and listened to her, I remembered what we had, or at least what I thought we had before my proposal, and almost wanted to give her what she wanted, but I just didn't see it. It happened. Before I could say anything, our food arrived, and we ate in silence until our plates were empty. I asked if she wanted dessert, and she replied, "No dessert, Rob. You know what I want." I saw no point in prolonging the conversation, so I wiped my mouth with a napkin, took a sip of water, and said, "I don't see that happening, Katie. You chose a career over me, and I understand that you have achieved great success in this career. They tell me that you will almost certainly become vice president in the near future. Are you ready to give this up for me?" Why are you asking me this? Because I already know that after completing my task here, I will be promoted, and that means I will return to Chicago. Will you leave your job and come with me? Why can't you just stay here? This answer told me everything, although she didn't know it. She wasn't going to give up her chance to become vice president, even for me. Who knows? Maybe I'll stay, I said, not meaning a word, but I didn't want to end our dinner on an unpleasant note, and the words, "See, I knew you wouldn't choose me," definitely would have. I let her know that I would think about it and maybe start dating her, and then I took her home. I walked her to the door, and when she asked if I wanted to come in, I declined, saying I was expecting a hard day tomorrow and needed to go home to rest. She kissed me on the cheek and said, "Call me," and I left. The next day, just before the end of work, I received a call from Jamie asking me to meet her for drinks after work. She named the place and was already there when I arrived. I joined her in the booth, ordered from the waitress, and as soon as she left, Jamie said, "Katie was in a great mood today. She told us she had dinner with you last night. Are you going to return everything?" "No. She invited me to dinner so we could talk, and she really tried to get us back together. I didn't tell her yes or no because I couldn't bring myself to be an ass and just say sorry, but no, she'll understand when I don't call." She didn't say anything to this, but smiled. We sat, talked, had a couple more drinks, and then agreed to meet the next evening, which was a Saturday. Over the next 2 weeks, Jamie and I dated. I saw her at least 3 times a week, and by the end of the second week, we were making love. On the third week, I came home from work to find Katie waiting for me in the parking lot. How she found out where I lived, I don't know and didn't ask. There was no need. She was there, and knowing how she found out wouldn't change that. She came up to me when I got out of the car. "Why didn't you call me?" "Because we have no future, and I didn't see the point in giving you false hope." "Of course, we won't have a future if you don't even try." "I don't need to try when I already know the outcome. When I asked you to marry me, you chose your career over me, And I know in my heart and in my mind that you will do it again, and I will not allow myself to be in that situation again. How can you say that? Don't you think I can change? When we were having dinner that night, I asked you if you were willing to give up your career for me, and your answer was, "Why are you asking me that?" The correct answer to this question should have been, "I already abandoned you once and will never repeat this mistake." A minute later, I told you that I would eventually return to Chicago and asked if you would quit your job and come with me. The answer to that should have been, "I'll go where you go," or something similar, but the answer I got was, "Why can't you just stay here?" No, Katie, I don't believe that you won't choose a career instead of me again. How can I prove you wrong? Just. Tomorrow I will go to work and quit. I cannot do it. Why not? I worked like hell to get to where I am now. You can't expect me to give it all up. I laughed and said, "That's it, Katie, doing exactly what I expected. Work comes before Rob. You can't do it now, but I have to trust that you will do it when you become vice president and have your sights set on the president and CEO. You're being unfair, Rob. Maybe not to you, Katie, but I'm fair to myself. I won't put myself in a position where you can hurt me again." I left her and went into my apartment. I had a date with Jamie the next day, and when I picked her up, she asked what I had done to piss off Katie. She was just awful to me today and called me a rotten bitch for stopping her from getting back to you. I told her about how Katie was at my house when I got home from work and what was said. Next time she says you're bothering her, just tell her it was her election that ended us. Just tell her that if she really wanted me, she would quit her job to be with me. The next day, she told me that Katie was mean to her again and that she told Katie exactly what I told her. And then I told her to leave me alone or I would go to senior management and file a complaint against her. What could you complain about? Personal harassment. This is a legitimate complaint. Stupid, but still legal. The point is that it will be in her business, and potential vice presidents need to be careful not to let that happen. I laughed and said, "You really know where to hit to make it hurt." A few more weeks passed, and Katie stayed away from Jamie and me, and I became increasingly close to Jamie and began to think that perhaps it would be worth talking to her about what the future held for us. I've already asked her to move in with me, but she said she'd rather not. It's a little too early, Rob. I need to feel more confident in our relationship before I take such a big step. I was a little disappointed, but I understood where she was getting it from. One Saturday, she told me she wanted to go to Starlight because she missed spending time with Meg and Jen. I doubted this. We don't need to be around Katie. Katie won't be there. Meg and Jen took my side and Katie stopped going out with them. Over the next month, we joined Meg and Jen at Starlight and had a great time. I took turns dancing with the girls, and Meg danced with probably half the guys who came to our table and asked her, and Meg sometimes left with someone. I was wondering why, even though Jen was supposed to be busy, her boyfriend never came with her to Starlight. I asked Jamie about it, and she said she had only heard about it, but had never seen it. Since it's none of my business, I just left it. Jamie and I got along well. Our dating slowed down a bit because she decided to take some advanced training courses. She was an accountant, and the courses were on Mondays and Thursdays. Sometimes she had to give up weekend dates due to some family obligations. I met her parents, sister, and one of her 3 brothers, and they seemed nice. I knew family was important even though I didn't have one. My mother had no brothers or sisters, and her parents died when I was 5 years old. My father also had no siblings, and his parents died before he met my mother, and then he suddenly passed away. I wanted a family, and I wanted to be part of a family. Katie knew this, and it was one of the reasons why she left me. I couldn't be angry when Jamie had to turn me down for the sake of the family. It was one of those weekends when Jamie was with her family, and I decided to go to Starlight, have a couple of drinks, and maybe dance with Jen and Meg if they were there. Meg wasn't there that night, so Jen and I sat and talked until the band started playing. As soon as they started, I danced with Jen. At about 9:30, I decided to call it a night. Jen asked me to meet her for coffee at the Village Inn, and when we sat in a booth there, she said, "This will be difficult for me, Rob, because I don't usually interfere in other people's affairs. Besides, I don't know what kind of relationship you have with Jamie. You may already know what I'm about to tell you, and that's okay with you. But if not, this is what you need to know. I think it's best to ask you exclusively whether your relationship with Jamie or whether it's what some call an open relationship." As I sat and listened to her, I tried to figure out where this conversation was going, but I was pretty sure I wouldn't like the answer. I knew what an open relationship was, so I said, "We don't have an open relationship. What's this all about, Jen? Jamie is seeing someone else a couple of times a week, and I'm pretty sure she's with him now." "How did you know that?" "Our office isn't that big, and I can hear some of her conversations with Bert, including one where they discussed what they were going to do this weekend." "I take it this Bert guy works in your office?" "Yes, it works. What I find interesting is that he and Jamie had a relationship that for some reason went south. I remember him calling her stinky bitch and said that she was worthless and that he didn't want to deal with her anymore. That was over a year ago, and now he's talking to her again and going on dates with her. It's almost like he didn't want her until someone else did. After she and Bert broke up, she dated people, but never got into a relationship that was as sustainable as she was with you. Or should I say were instead of is. I don't know, but I'm a little curious. I thought Jamie was your friend, so I don't know why you're telling me this." "She's my friend, but there's one thing I absolutely despise, and that's cheating. My hatred for cheating is stronger than any friendship I've ever had, and I think you should know. What are you going to do?" "I'm learning more about what's going on. I know it's a lot to ask, but could you listen if they agreed to go somewhere where I could catch them? I think I can do it. I take it you're not planning on confronting her right away?" "No. I think I need to know more about what's going on before I do anything." On the way home, I thought about what I had heard and what it meant to me. Jamie and I didn't have what you'd call a committed relationship. I practically asked her for them when I asked her to move in with me, but she refused and said she wasn't ready to take such a big step. Maybe she couldn't commit because she still had some feelings for Bert and couldn't contact me until she could give me 100%. We didn't agree to be exclusive, so I couldn't see her dating this Bert as cheating, but I did see it as lying to me. She lied when she talked about her courses, and she lied when she talked about family matters, using that time to date this other guy. But even if she lied, can I blame her for it? Maybe she thought that telling me the truth would make me leave her, and she didn't want that. Maybe she just wanted to make sure that her feelings for this other guy weren't so strong that it would stop her from contacting me. By the time I got home, the only thing I was sure of was that thinking about all these maybes wouldn't accomplish anything. I needed to know what was what, and that meant staying calm and learning as much as I could. On Sunday afternoon, I received a call from Jamie saying she was available and asking, would I like to meet her? I said I didn't want to go anywhere, but if she wanted to come to my place, I'd cook us dinner. She said she would come, and 20 minutes later, she knocked on my door. I let her in, gave her a glass of white wine, and told her to sit at the kitchen table while I prepared dinner. A couple of minutes after she sat down, I casually asked, "How was the visit with the family?" "It was fine, but to be honest, I would rather be here with you. If it gives you anything, I'd rather you were here too." After dinner, we sat at the table, drank wine, and talked about different things. She was thinking about buying a new car, and we were discussing cars when I suddenly asked, "Will we succeed? I mean, will we be more than friends with benefits?" The sudden change of topic took her by surprise, and she seemed to hesitate a bit before speaking. "I don't know. I feel good with you, but I was in other relationships where I also felt good, and they ended badly. I would like something to work out between us, but past experience has made me a little careful in matters of obligations. Why suddenly ask such a question? When I was alone on the weekend, I started to wonder where my life was going, thinking about things like getting married, having kids, buying a house. Before you, there were 3 women I thought I would go down the path with at home 2 children, but it all fell apart, so I began to wonder what would happen to you. What's wrong with what we have now? It works. Yes, but it doesn't bring me closer to the house, fence, children, dog, and cat that I want. I want it too, but I feel like it's too soon. I looked at her for a few seconds and then said, I get the impression that you can't commit because there is someone else and it's hard for you to make a choice. This is absurd. Maybe, but after several failed relationships, I learned to look at things differently than others. Like I said, it's just a feeling I get. Well, your feeling ruined the mood with which I came. I think I'd better leave. I didn't say anything, and she stood up, picked up her purse, and headed for the door. She grabbed the doorknob and turned to me, seemingly about to say something, but she didn't. She turned, opened the door, and left. At work at 11:30, my secretary said that they were calling me on the first line. I picked up the phone, pressed the first line button, and discovered it was Jen. After the greetings, she said, "What did you do, Jamie? She's been acting like she's been spat on in the past since she came to work this morning." I told her how the evening went. "That explains everything," she said. "You told me to let you know if I heard they were going somewhere you might catch them, and that's why I'm calling." He asked her to lunch, and she said she would go and meet him at Marcos at noon. "I don't know if you have enough time." I called as soon as I heard their conversation. "I have enough time. Marcos is only 10 minutes from here. Call me and tell me how it went." "Absolutely, and thanks for calling." I drove to Marcos and parked in the lot a couple of minutes after 12. I saw Jamie's car parked in the second row. I gave him and Bert another 5 minutes to get settled, and then I got out of the car and went inside. Jamie's back was towards me, and she didn't know I had entered. The big surprise for me was that I knew this Bert. He saw me, his face lit up with a wide smile, and I realized that it was not because he was happy to see me. This Bert turned out to be none other than Bert Ellsworth. The same Bert Ellsworth who was going to beat me up when he found out I was going to take Pauline French to prom. It's funny how sometimes your mind can take something, think about it from different angles, and come up with the right answer that seems unexpected. Jen told me that Bert, whom Jamie had previously dated, left her cruelly, and now he is trying to win her back again. There was no doubt in my mind that he didn't really want her back. Somehow he found out that she was dating me and remembered me. I was the guy who he believed stole Pauline French from him, and now he wanted revenge by taking Jamie away from me. He didn't need her, but he needed revenge on me. All these thoughts flashed through my head instantly before Jamie realized that I had entered. I smiled, walked up to their table, and extended my hand. "Bert, long time no see. Didn't know you lived in Dayton." Then, as if I hadn't noticed her when I first walked through the door, "Jamie, hi guys, sorry to interrupt your lunch. It was good to see you, Bert." And I walked away from their table and sat down at a table in the back of the room so that my back was to them. I ordered lunch, ate it, and when I got up to leave, Bert and Jamie were gone. I went back to work, and surprisingly, I got a lot done. Of course, I wondered if Jamie would call me this evening when I got home from work. If she called, she wouldn't catch me unless she called very late, because I wasn't planning on coming home until very late. I went to Riley's sports bar and spent most of the evening there, returning home only at 11:15 and falling asleep by 11:30. The next day at work, I received another call from Jen. "I'm dying of curiosity. Jamie was in a terrible mood this morning. What happened yesterday?" I told her how it went, and she said, "You haven't talked to her at all." Not a word. I pretended to be surprised to see her, apologized for interrupting their lunch, and left. I have no idea what happened next because I sat with my back to them. I then told her that I knew Bert, about our past, and my theory about why Bert was trying to get her back. I bet if I leave her, in a week or two, he will leave her too. What if you leave her? It sounds like something you might not want to do. I don't know what I'm going to do. I only know that I won't do anything until I talk to her. Keep me posted, okay? Certainly. Stay alert and let me know the news. Understood. Bye. I had been home for about 30 minutes and was trying to decide whether to go out to eat or stay home and cook something for myself when the phone rang. I said it was Jamie and she wanted to know if she could come over. Have I ever said no? I'll be there in a little while. Stop by Pizza Hut on the way. I'll order pizza to go. I called, placed my order, and paid by credit card, and within half an hour Jamie showed up with the food. She placed the pizza boxes on the kitchen table and kissed me. What did you order? Pepperoni for me and a vegetarian stuffed crust without mushrooms for you. As you like. Yummy, she said, taking 2 beers from the refrigerator. I didn't plan to mention her lunch with Bert. I was going to let her dictate the conversation, but I wanted to give her a shot to get the conversation going in the right direction. As soon as we sat down to eat, I said, after you left that evening, I'm a little surprised you called me today. I'm sorry, but you upset me with your conversations about how you feel and your innuendos. I felt like I needed to leave before things were said that we would later regret. I didn't say anything, just took another bite of pizza and washed it down with a sip of beer. Why, knowing him, didn't you join Bert and me in the restaurant? Bert didn't tell you. He said you went to the same school, and that's all. It's true, but we weren't friends. They weren't even close friends and almost came to blows a couple of times. This was many years ago, and when I saw him in a restaurant, I decided it couldn't hurt to be friendly. Just not friendly enough to sit down and chat, plus I didn't want to disturb you too. You could. He's just a colleague. Everything is fine. It's none of my business. As soon as I said that, I could almost see the light bulb above her head go on. Oh no, he's just a colleague I have lunch with sometimes. I said nothing. No need. I can feel it. You see me with another man and add that to your feeling that there is someone else stopping me from committing. Why can't you just accept that I'm just not ready? How about we change the subject before things go wrong again? I don't want to change the subject. We need to discuss this and figure it out. Fine. If that's what you want, so be it. My feeling that there is someone else is not just a feeling. I know for a fact that you and Ellsworth have something going on. A little birdie told me about your past relationship and how it ended. Now he's here again, and you meet on the evenings when you supposedly have classes and on the weekends when you're supposed to be with your family. You haven't made a commitment, so I can't complain about you seeing someone else, but I can be angry that you lie to me about what you do when you're with him. It doesn't matter that I don't like that bastard. You are free to do what you want, and if a relationship with me is not part of that something, then you need to honestly tell me not to waste my time on you anymore. Don't lead me by the nose with this, I'm just not ready bullshit. Just tell me straight out that you can't commit because you also have feelings for someone else. She just looked at me with an unintelligible expression on her face and then said, I don't need this. She stood up, grabbed her purse, and headed towards the door. I didn't say anything. I just stood up and cleared the dirty plates from the table. I was putting them in the dishwasher when I heard the door open and close. The next day at work, I received another call from Jen. I don't know what you did, but whatever it was, it made Jamie very angry. She's been just awful since she came in this morning. She even snapped at Bert when he asked her if they were going to lunch. I told Jen how the evening had gone, and she asked, Is this the end for you too? As far as I'm concerned, yes. Then, if you are right in what you think about Bertha, he will soon leave her. I don't know if I want to be here when it happens. Do you want to cheer yourself up? If you want to go to Starlight after work, I'll let you buy me a drink. I didn't have anything better to do, so I said I'd meet her there. She was already in the booth when I arrived. After ordering, I asked her, What will your fiancé say when he finds out that you meet men at a bar after work? To hell with him if he can't take a joke. The real reason I was hoping you would accept my offer to meet here was to tell you about what happened in the office today. I couldn't tell this over the phone because they might overhear me. Basically, what happened was Jamie called you every name except Jesus' friend, and Katie heard her and smiled and asked Jamie if that meant she was done with you. Jamie snapped, "You want this idiot? Take him away." Katie walked around smiling all day. "I just wanted to warn you. I don't think Katie has given up on you yet." It doesn't matter whether she gave up on me or not, because I already gave up on her. We had another drink. I thanked her for the information and went home. Friday came and I decided I needed to go out and have some fun. Starlight wasn't an option because I didn't want to run into Jamie or anyone else who goes there. I heard good things about the Alhambra Lounge and decided to give it a try. There was quite a large crowd there, but there were still empty tables, booths, and bar stools. I didn't see a table or booth just for myself, so I sat at the bar. I sat there for about 20 minutes when Katie, Meg, and two girls I didn't know came in and took one of the empty booths. I sat at the end of the bar and doubted that Katie would notice me, but even if she did, so what? She knew my position towards her, so I doubted that she would do anything even if she saw me. It just goes to show how stupid you can be sometimes. Katie sat down on a chair overlooking the bar, noticed me almost immediately, and immediately rose from her chair and walked towards me. She came up to me and said, "Admit it, Rob, we are meant for each other. Why else would fate have arranged for us to end up in the same place so soon after you left Jamie?" First of all, I didn't leave Jamie. She decided she didn't want to play with me anymore. Secondly, I don't believe in fate. If we were meant for each other, you would have chosen me over your career, but you didn't. I still don't understand why I can't have both. I never said you couldn't have it both ways. The problem, and I admit it's my problem, is that when it comes to choosing between me and your career, I'll come second, and I won't stand for that. My woman should always put me first, and you either can't or won't do that. Your friends are looking at you like you're going to ruin their evening, so you better get back to them. Damn it, Rob, why can't you work with me on this? You have a job here. Stay here. You don't have to go back to Chicago. I can't stay here and get what I want. I need a promotion that will take me back to Chicago. I need the raise that comes with this raise so I can afford what I want. I want a family, Katie. I want a house, and I want sons and daughters. Are you going to give up your career to be a mother? You know it's not. Face it, Katie, no matter how much you say you want to be together, and no matter how much I want the same, it will never happen. I put a $5 on the bartender's bar, climbed off my stool, and left the establishment. This meeting ruined my evening, and I went home. My mood also ruined my weekend, and it took a ton of work on my desk on Monday to get me out of it. Before lunch, I received a call from Jen. "You were right," she said. "As soon as Bert found out that you and Jamie broke up, he left her, and she was in a terrible mood this morning. Besides, something must have happened to Katie over the weekend that made her unbearable too. I don't know if I can continue working here. I can't handle all this drama. Maybe I should take you with me when I go back to Chicago. I'm sure you can find a good job there. Judging by what's going on here now, I might actually take advantage of your offer." Hold on, darling. With me and Ellsworth gone, things should calm down. God, I hope so. Stay in touch, okay? Certainly. Bye. I decided to change my habits. I was looking for activities that would keep me occupied and away from places where I might run into Katie and Jamie. I found a good sports bar and started going there after work a couple times a week. One evening I was there, and one of the guys I had become friends with asked me if I could bowl. I said I could, and he asked if I would like to join the mixed league on Wednesday nights. He said he needed one more person on the team and was having trouble finding someone. I didn't have any plans for Wednesday, so I said I'd give it a try. I warned him that I was not a regular player and bowling was just something I did on dates in school. I didn't even have my own ball or shoes. He told me not to worry, it's just a fun league. There are a couple of teams that take the game seriously, but most of us are here for fun. I came on Wednesday and met the rest of the team. It was Ron's wife, Mira, and Hal and his wife, Carla. I rented shoes, found a suitable ball, and we started playing. I didn't disgrace myself, but I didn't shine either. When we finished, we went to the bar to have a drink and chat, and that's when the evening went wrong for me. Bert Ellsworth was sitting at the bar. I hoped he didn't notice me when I walked in with my teammates, and at first it seemed like I was lucky. After about 40 minutes, the others got up and left, but I still had half a beer and stayed to finish it. Bad move on my part. As soon as the others left, Bert climbed off his bar stool and came and sat at my table. He grinned widely and said, "Are you drowning your sorrows, Daltrey? How does it feel when your girlfriend is taken away from you?" I almost laughed in his face, but instead I decided to mock him a little. "What's that supposed to mean? You stole Pauline from me, and I stole Jamie from you." I laughed and said, "Only in a dream. You couldn't take a woman away from me on your best day. Jamie meant nothing to me. I only dated her to annoy Katie. Katie and I were doing well in college, but she broke us up. She wants me back, and it will happen. But first I want to bully her a little to get some revenge for the breakup. You didn't take anything from me, Ellsworth." I laughed again, took a sip of my beer, finished it, stood up and said, "See you, loser." Another 2 weeks passed. I went to Riley's sports bar a couple times a week and bowled on Wednesdays. Luckily, I never ran into Ellsworth again at the bowling alley bar. I spent my weekends visiting various nightclubs in search of meetings with the opposite sex. I danced with a lot of ladies, but I didn't get along with anyone. I pretty much decided that I would have fun in Dayton and look for sorority when I returned to Chicago. I was just getting ready to leave the office on Thursday when the phone rang. It was Jen, and after the usual greetings, she said, "You'll never guess what happened. Jamie is in a bad mood because Ellsworth is courting Katie." "How did you know this?" I laughed and told her how I set Ellsworth up at the bowling alley. I knew he would go after Katie as soon as I told him. "You're just mean." "I know. Isn't that great?" "Why did you do this to Katie? I thought you liked her." "I more than like her, but we can never be together. She's career-oriented, and I'm family-oriented, and it's not compatible. You can have it both ways. She can have her own career and still be a wife and mother. It's not a problem. She will always put her career first. I know what I'm saying, Jen. I know Katie, her mindset, and her drive to succeed. I can write a script right now. We are getting married, and she will resist having children because they will interfere with her career. If I do manage to get her pregnant, she will work until the baby is born, and then hire a nanny or send the child to daycare and return to her career. This won't suit me. I want sons and daughters, and for the mother to stay at home until the children go to school. Once this happens, she will be able to return to work, but it will be years of waiting. Katie won't do this. I know. I already discussed it with her, and she wasn't interested. She can change. The way she talks about you, I know she knows she made a mistake when she broke up with you. Maybe, but I feel like when faced with a choice, she'll do it again. Stay in touch and let me know the news." "Understood. Take care of yourself. See you later." Over the next month, Jen called me about once a week. Ellsworth was still courting Katie, and she went out with him a couple of times, but according to Jen, there was no passion in the relationship. She went on dates with Bert, but also dated a couple of other guys. She's been dating for as long as I've known her, but no guy has been able to form a lasting relationship with her, and honestly, I think it's because of you. Because of me? Do you remember the first time we met? Remember how I said that everyone wanted to meet you because of what Katie said about you? Yes, I didn't believe it. This is true. After she went on a date with a guy and we asked her how it went, she would always compare the date to you. It was always something like Rob would never do that, or something like I can't believe I let go goods just to go on a date with such a nonentity. You really should give her a chance, Rob. What do you have to lose? Just everything I put into it. When it all falls apart, I know it will. I think you're wrong, but it's your life, so I won't mention it anymore. But of course she did, and I began to suspect that her new goal in life was to get Katie and me together again. It was Thursday, and I had just returned to the office after lunch with my boss when I received a call from Jen. "Do you want to help me do something evil?" "Do something evil? What do you mean?" "I just heard Bert set up a date with Katie for tomorrow. I want you to call her and invite her to dinner tomorrow night. If I'm right in what I'm thinking, she'll cancel her date with Bert to go with you." "Why should I do this?" "To get back at Bert for interfering with your relationship with Jamie and to help me." "How can I help you?" "I don't like Bert. I believe it is a snake. I didn't like the way he treated Jamie, and she's my friend. Katie is my friend too, and Bert doesn't care about her. He just wants to set you up, so I want to make fun of him a little. I don't know if this would be a good idea. Katie might think she has a chance. Look at this as an opportunity to make your case again. You never know, Rob. Perhaps she will change her mind." I hesitated for a few seconds and thought about it. Finally, I said, "Okay, I'll do it. More to annoy Bertha than to start anything with Katie. Plus, I don't like what he did to Jamie as much as you do. However, there is always a chance that you are wrong and she will say no. I'm willing to bet he won't. Is she still at work?" "Yes, at work." "Okay, I'll call her right now. I'll keep an eye on her and call you back as soon as she hangs up." I wondered if I really wanted to do this when I hung up. "Cheer up, boy. You said you'd do it, so do it." I picked up the phone again and dialed the number. 2 beeps and then, "Thank you for calling Wexler. If you know the internal telephone number, dial it now." I dialed the number Katie. 2 beeps and then, "Good afternoon, this is Katie. How can I help?" "You could come with me to dinner tomorrow night." Several seconds of silence passed before I heard, "Rob." I got it right the first time. "Are you asking me out on a date?" I think that's exactly what I said. If this call is being recorded for quality assurance and training purposes, you may want to listen back to it to make sure. Of course, I'd love to have dinner with you tomorrow. We discussed logistics, and she gave me her address and directions to her house. When I hung up, I had to admit to myself that I was glad to see her again. 5 minutes later, she called me Jen. I knew she would agree. When she hung up, she jumped up, raised her fist in the air, and screamed. Yes, naturally, all the girls came up and asked what was going on. She literally glowed, saying that you invited her to dinner tomorrow night. Bert was sitting at his desk when she said this and said, "Hey, you have a date with me tomorrow," Katie said. "Sorry, but it was Rob. This is a chance to get us back together, and I'm going to take it." Then Bert called her a fucking bitch, and Katie said, "What did you call me?" He said she heard him well enough, and she laughed and said, "So did everyone else here in the office." She then picked up the phone and called Monica from HR and asked if she was free now, and when Monica answered in the affirmative, Kathy said that she had an issue with a coworker that she needed to discuss with Monica. Bert lost his temper and said, "You stupid bitch, what are you doing?" But by that time, Katie was already heading towards Monica. "I will keep you posted." I arrived in time to pick up Katie, and when she answered my knock and opened the door, she literally left me speechless. She was always beautiful, but that evening she was dazzling. It was obvious that she was going to try her best. At that moment, I made a decision that many may think was heartless, and perhaps it was, but I was going to be with her again and enjoy her as much as I could before returning to Chicago. If I was right in my thoughts, we would have at least 6 months together, maybe 9. When the time comes to leave, I'll give her the choice to stay or go with me, although I'm almost sure of her choice. On the way to the restaurant, we talked about what we'd been doing since we graduated from college and about family and friends. The conversation continued during dinner, and after eating, I took away her drink and dance. "I want this. Do we have to stay here?" "Are you sure?" "Absolutely." We left the dance floor, finished our drinks, and then left. Entering her apartment, she dragged me into the bedroom, where we quickly undressed and spent the next 3 hours. From that night, we became a couple. I gave up my apartment and moved in with Katie, and the next 4 months flew by before Katie started talking about getting married. I wasn't against the idea, but I wasn't going to commit until I saw if Kathy would come with me when it was time to go back to Chicago. I needed to see if she would choose me or not. Therefore, when she started talking about a permanent relationship, I remained silent. Katie wasn't stupid, and she realized I was just not ready, so she backed off. We had 7 good months together before it was time to make a decision. I was given the promotion I expected, and it was time to return to Chicago. I was in my office, looking through spreadsheets, when my secretary announced that my wife was on the second line. I picked up the phone and said, "Hi, dear. What happened?" "I just left the doctor's and decided to call and tell you the news. You will become a dad." "This is wonderful news, dear. When will we know if it's a boy or a girl?" "Until birth. I want it to be a surprise." "Your choice, darling. I don't care. I'm going to spoil the child anyway. I love you, Jen." "Jen." "Yes, Jen." When I told Kathy that I had gotten a promotion and it was time to return to Chicago, I asked her where she would like to have her wedding. In Dayton, where all her friends are, or in Chicago, where we will live. She did exactly what I always knew she would do. She chose her career over me. I packed my things and left her apartment an hour after our conversation. It was an emotional moment, and she begged me not to leave, but she didn't change her mind, so I left. I checked into a hotel for the last 2 weeks in Dayton. The next day after lunch, she called me Jen. Katie was unbearable all day. "The only one who can piss her off like that is you. What happened?" I told her what happened, and she said she was sorry it didn't work out. Then she surprised me. "Remember when I said I couldn't handle all the drama at work, and you asked me to move to Chicago with you?" "I remember." "Do you really think I can find a good job there?" "I'm sure of it." "Can you find something for me when you get back there?" "Certainly." When I got back to Chicago, I started looking and found a few places where Jen might be able to find work and called her to let her know. A week later, she called me and said that she accepted the offer and was hired in Chicago in 2 weeks and asked me to show her the city when she arrived, and of course I agreed. When she started a new job, I made an appointment with her to show her around the city, and on that date, I asked her when her fiancé would be joining her, and she said her fiancé wasn't there. They broke up around the time I broke up with Jamie, but she didn't want to talk about it because she knew how others in the office would react to it, and she just didn't want to deal with that drama. That first date led to several more, and we eventually became a couple. 6 months later, she moved in with me, and 2 months later, I proposed to her, and she accepted. We planned a small wedding with just family and a few friends. One night at dinner, Jen jokingly, or at least I hoped jokingly, asked if we should send wedding invitations to Katie and Jamie. "Hell no, I'm sure Kathy will come, and when the pastor asks if anyone knows why we shouldn't be married, she'll stand up and say something, and I'd rather our wedding not be interrupted." She just laughed and said it made sense. I have no idea how Katie and Jamie took the news when they heard it, but I didn't care. As a final note, Bert was reprimanded for using obscene language in front of women in the office. That letter cost him a promotion, and being Bert, he just had to blame it on Kathy. Unfortunately for him, he did it loudly and profanely in front of half a dozen other employees, and he was fired. Jamie met a guy, and they got married about 6 months after Jen and I did. Katie became vice president, and as far as we know, she's still single. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think click to the next one.